I'm standing, it's Gavin, I'm standing in front of this yellow house here in Mako. It's a different house than you've seen before because we moved. And we've been moving around ever since, I guess, we got to Mako when we came into Sonora like 8 months ago. And we've been in and out and traveling and exploring and all that good stuff because Mako's really cool. There's lots of freedom. There's lots of things to see. So howdy everybody in our live stream, pop in there. Big shout out to our Patreon supporters. Thank you all for backing this channel over there at patreon.com/Gavin Syme, Team Explorers, Gamer Mark, James, all you guys. Sixth Estate. Shout out to our auditors all over the USA and beyond. And just gonna do a quick video for you guys about living, like housing and stuff, because I'm trying to do more of not only showing you real Mako, but giving you guys information. These videos may not get quite as many views on my channel, but I think they're useful because there's a lot of people looking to escape the USSA. Here is, we got this little house here that we're renting right now. And hi.
Little might be an understatement.
It's actually, little's not an understatement. I mean, it's a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house. But this one's a little small for us right now. So if we look in here, I mean, we're getting this set up and it's not a bad little house. It's actually a very nice little house in here. Now, this is in Querétaro State as well. And hi. We have all these, little yard. It's got its walls. You can live in a tent in Mako. You can rent a house. Some people do like Airbnbs. Hotels, motels are, of course, if you're just traveling through, are very inexpensive. So let's talk about a few of the different ways that that you might live in Mako, depending on how long. Now, the house is a little small, but there is a cool little office over here that I've set up because to get videos done, to get my work done, to get my photography done, I need an office. And so I do have a little office here. There's actually a couple extra bathrooms over here too. Everything is kind of in a state of panda right now. And you can see that I kind of got a mess. We moved out of the other place. The place we were in for the past 6 months was a really nice house. And it was basically like a vacation rental house. It was gorgeous. It was huge. It was an open floor plan. It was right in Centro of Tech East. Absolutely beautiful house. And let's talk a little bit about costs, because that was a house that would have been probably $3,000 to $5,000 a month in the US, depending on where it was. But that was a big fancy house. That was not a cracker box house. That was an amazing, gorgeous house. Hang on, I'm gonna close this shade just a little bit. It's that sun coming in is just a little bit too bright. Okay, so what then? Well, that house was about $1,600 US per month. In Mako, that's a lot, right? If you tell people you're paying $1,600 a month for a house, they're like, really? That's too much, right? That's crazy. So that was basically like a nice 4-bedroom swimming pool, came with a gardener, all that stuff, vacation house, okay? And it was about $1,600 a month, and I'm sure they'd be happy to rent it to you for that. Now, this little house I just showed you here, little 3-bedroom, 2-bath, you can see that I have a little office here. Let me turn this camera around. This is actually a pretty big room. This can be used as like a separate little house, very common in Mako, or in my case, I'm gonna use it as my office, and I'm kind of still getting it dialed in here, okay? This house is only about $400 a month for a 3-bedroom with property, with a yard, everything. Very, very good value. So one of the things, cost of living in Mako in general is about $1/4. Now, if you're coming to Mako and you're just gonna be like, hey, I'm coming down and I just want to visit, right? Well, in that case, you can tent, you can bring an RV, you can do whatever you want. Just get motels, right? Probably if it's your first time in Mako, you're not just gonna wanna pitch a tent on the side of the road. Most people are gonna be a little uncomfortable in a new place doing that. Now, I'm just trying to find the best place in this new room where the light, because YouTube's ability to adjust the camera is 0. So what are your options? Well, you've got Airbnbs. That's a popular option globally, and I know some other YouTubers and stuff that do Airbnbs, and so you can do short-term stuff that way. If you want to move around and you're just coming on a short trip, you can go to just hotels, motels, and get costs anywhere from probably $10, $15 a night all the way up to, 40 or 50 for really nice ones. And you can spend more in like Mexico City. But in general, a motel is going to be at least half of, probably less, is of what it's going to be in the USA. And I see we got some people in here that are really have been visiting Mexico, and so you guys might have some of your own input of what you did down here, right? Share that with everybody else, because I know since I've come here, a lot more people have been coming here, talking about coming here, and just more and more of us are saying, man, we need to get out of the USA. We need to see what else is out there and see what freedom looks like elsewhere. You got a range. You can get an apartment, right? If you're just by yourself, or you and your wife, something like that, you and your brother, you can get a studio type apartment in town, a nice one, for probably $150 a month, even in a nicer area, right? Even in a state or a city like Querétaro that's a bit higher end, probably a little more in Mexico City, but that's like living in New York, so that's not a fair comparison. Then you get into houses, actual houses with yards and the works. You're gonna start at probably $250 to $400 a month. You can see I showed you this house out here. This is $400 a month. Let me actually give you a view outside here. And you can see that, we've got like the guest house here, which I'm using as the office. We've got a big yard. We've got the house. The drill is going on here, right? It's a nice place. It's a little small for our family, so we're not going to stay here long term. Part of the problem with the other place, and you'll see this a lot in townhouses, is, as you guys know, I have big vehicles, right? I've got the Truth van. I've got my trailer, and a lot of times the houses in town, like the other one we were in, was very nice, but there was parking only on the street. And it's getting to the point where I'm like, I want another vehicle for getting around. I don't just want to park on the streets, okay? So I'm looking for places with more property, but also a lot of times they have overhangs, kind of like what you see behind me, right? These brick overhangs, because most of the nice houses have, instead of a fence, they have a stone wall around them of varying heights to give you privacy and security, because they don't really rely on police for their security here. People take care of themselves. And if you have a tall vehicle like mine, that could be a problem, okay? Now, what if you want to buy, right? Your options, if you got Airbnb, you got hotels, you can boondock camping. You're way less likely to get harassed if you've got like a camper on the back of your pickup truck and you just park somewhere. But some people aren't comfortable with that. Some people are newer at camping. Close the door here. And some people just have, they want a little more security than that. You can go to campgrounds with your camper. There's less of those than in the USA, but particularly along the coastal areas, you'll find campgrounds for RVers and tents and things like that if you want to take that route. And you can mix it up. You can camp out of your car, you can get a hotel one night so you can get a shower, whatever. It's inexpensive to visit. Long term, you're probably going to want a place. So you can rent. At this point, most people would say rent for a while in Mexico. Don't just run down here and buy a place, because who knows what you're going to find, or you might come to a place in Mexico, and if you come to visit a city in Mexico, you're probably going to be like, oh, it's amazing, I want to live here, this is great, it's so much cheaper. But you might then go and buy a piece of property or a house, and a year later you'll have gone to visit new places, and you're like, man, I wish I had bought a place in this other city because it's even more amazing. Okay, so renting, most people would recommend renting at least for the first year, even if you plan to come here permanently, right? Maybe you just want to come here for a few months in the winter, find somewhere warm. It's a little harder to rent a full house like this for just a couple months. So in that case, you might have to do Airbnb. Our first rental, we got a 6-month lease on, and we kind of had to fight for that a little bit. A lot of people wanted a year lease. And if you actually want to rent a house straight up, they may want a year lease. So that's something to think about, but you're still not committed because you haven't bought that place, right? Talk about buying land. A lot of people tell you, oh no, if you're not a Mexican, you can't even buy land in Mexico. That's absolute nonsense. That's just propaganda, US stuff, just like the fact that Mexico has more freedom, or its cops are more violent, has less freedom rather, or its cops are more violent. None of those things are true. Now, if you really want to dig into the minutia of the law, there are some rules about owning coastal and border land in Mexico if you're not a citizen, okay? And if you're really looking at wanting a beach property, yes, there are ways that you can buy beach property. And it's not even really worth getting into right here, because if you're that serious, you can look into the legal aspects of it. There are some slight legal differences if you're on a border or a coastline. Other than that, a non-resident can own land just like anyone else. And so I hear all the time people saying, oh, you can't buy land down there, because everybody is being fueled. Most of their information, if we live in the USA, most of people's information is being fueled on the propaganda and confirmation bias and trying to prove that what they've believed all their life, America's the best, is correct, right? That's how most people are operating. They're not generally operating on facts. So you want to get outside of that and get to the facts. Land costs, hugely variable. In fact, building a house in Mexico is not that expensive. In an area like Tequis, where I was, it's wine country, right? It's kind of like the new Napa Valley here in Mexico. And so land around Tequis is expensive. For example, you might pay, if you're right around a tourist city like Tequis, a nice lot, you might pay more for the land than you would to build a house on it, okay? So that's something to keep in mind. Whereas you might find a lot in Tequis and it might be, let's say, 1 million pesos, right? For a nice lot for a house, if it's right around town, maybe $100,000. Now, if you go outside of town, it's gonna be cheaper, right? So 1 million pesos is about 50 grand at this point. On the other hand, you might go 10 miles away into the state next door that's more of a like Hidalgo, let's say, right? Where it's not so much wine country, it's more just general farming and ranching and agricultural land. You might, for 1 million pesos or $50,000, you might get 20 acres of land over there. And so it's hugely variable, because you gotta remember that states in Mexico still have state identity. Things are still different. It's not just a wash and kind of all controlled by the federal government like the USA is. So as you go to different states and different cultures, some states are a little more wealthy. Querétaro State, it's still probably about a quarter the cost of living in the USA by and large, but Querétaro State is one of the more wealthy states in Mexico. It has one of the highest per capita incomes in Mexico. Whereas you go over to Hidalgo and it's a little more laid back. It's a little more native culture. Lands are a little more cheaper. The houses might not be as fancy, but it's tranquil. So these are things to think about, right? And that's a lot of the reason why you may not want to buy right off. Explore Mexico, find out what's better and what's worse. What has the peace and the tranquility. Querétaro State has a lower crime rate overall probably than Washington or Oregon or Idaho in most aspects. And so there's so many variables. You hear these things about Mexico, you hear the propaganda, you hear, oh, it's like this or it's like that. And all that is a propaganda agency trying to promote an agenda that takes one story, right? They'll take one story about something that happened in Sinaloa and say, look how terrible Mexico is. Well, have you seen what our police are doing? Have you seen the mass shootings? If people actually wrote articles about the USA the same as the USA does about Mexico, no one would want to go to the USA. And good on them, because the USA is a dangerous fascist state and it's very risky to go there because the system is so abusive. You could go there and think you're just doing normal things and end up in prison. I mean, it's not a place that I would recommend most people from around the world to visit. There's much better places with much more freedom, much more neighborly people, and a lot less expensive places to visit. So if you're not from the USA and you're thinking about going there, maybe think about going somewhere else, Yeah, go to Mexico. Go to Canada, right? Canada has its problems, and I think Canada is following the US in decline in many ways. But in general, like, Canada is much less hostile. Their police are much less likely to murder you on the streets. Their prison population is a fraction of what the USA is. And so it's important to look at those kind of things. But Canada's also cold in the winter, and I like being warm. In Querétaro State here, it is. What's up, buddy? I'm doing a live stream. Say hi.
Hi.
Hola. Say hola, buenas tardes, mi compadres.
Hola.
¿Qué tal? Querétaro State is kind of an eternal spring, much like Nayarit State. I've been in Nayarit State, beautiful. So it's interesting. It's interesting. And so as you look at all these different places to live in the world, right? You look at the USA and we pretend we have freedom. We pretend we have gun rights while our prisons are full of people who exercised those gun rights because the government doesn't recognize rights. The government doesn't recognize the Constitution. You can really judge a nation by how many people its government kills and imprisons. And so the USA is one of the most third world fascist nations in the world. Does Mexico have problems? Does Canada have problems? Of course. But Latin America in general, I find, is very warm. It's laid back. It's more chill. The government and the police are much more aggressive. The people have more tenacity, right? If a cop treated people on the streets in Mexico like they do every day in the USA, the people would give them the beat down. I mean, cops behaving like they do in the USA is simply not tolerated in Mexico. But I'm just kind of giving you guys some general thoughts. My main topic today was housing. So you can think about those options. Yes, you can buy land, but you probably don't want to right away. The land comes in widely varying prices. If you buy a nice house in a tourist town like Tequisquiapan, or even more so like in San Miguel Allende, where gringos hang out. Those aren't my favorite towns, the gringo towns, because they're a little too American for me. But you're gonna pay more in a place like that. If you want to like join the culture and learn Spanish and go be out with the locals, you can rent a place out in a small town somewhere in Nayarit or Hidalgo, or well, pretty much anywhere. I've been to about 10 states, I think, in Mexico. And most of them were very nice. There's a few of them that are struggling with violence problems that I'm not sure I'd want to live with my family, but I've still gone there to visit them. So beautiful places, beautiful options. And even if you're just coming to visit, right? Come down this summer or this fall and just visit Mexico for a couple weeks and see what freedom looks like. Because most people, if you live in the USA, you've probably never actually seen what having personal freedom looks like. It's not perfect in Mexico, but there is a lot more of it, okay? And it's pretty cool. So if you come down here for a couple weeks, just drive down in and cruise around, brush up on your Spanish, get an app, pay trail, thanks, and just enjoy it, right? Be careful, use your head, just like if you're out boondocking or camping in the States. And so I just did a post on my Steemit, Gavin Syme on Steemit, about camping in Mexico. And I've done a lot of camping. The first 3 months we were here, we just spent roaming in the RV, searching for our favorite places. And you know, as being an exile from my own country, it was a bit of an intense adventure, because I was like, where can I go in the world? It wasn't just a vacation for me. But for you, maybe it's just going to be a vacation to check out your options. And just like you would in the USA, you know, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of where you are. But the truth is, a gringo in Mexico, you're here, and they know you're here, gonna spend some money, and they're very warm and friendly by and large. And actually, statistically, a gringo is less likely to be murdered in Mexico than they are in the USA. Okay, so don't join a cartel, and you probably aren't going to have a problem. Even when I stand up to government and question police and stuff, it's met with far less hostility, as you guys have seen on this channel. So what do you do? How do you live in Mexico? Well, you just come down here and do it. Now, if you want to come here permanently, make a living, thanks, Darlindar. If you want to do those kind of things, then do your homework. We actually have another video on this channel called Escaping the USA that talks a little more in detail about getting permanent residency status and things like that. If you're just coming down here to visit, or even long-term visiting, a 6-month visa, you just grab one at the border. It's no big deal. It costs like $20. That, if you want to be completely legit, you can just grab a 6-month visa and you're good to go. And they usually want you to get a little car permit. And it's really just so they can make money. You know, they have reasons for it, but really they just want to make some money off you. And not that I agree with government robbing us, but I'm just like laying it out there how it is for you guys. But it's very simple, it's very chill, it's very laid back. Is Mexico perfect? No. Is anywhere in the world perfect? Not that I know of. If you know somewhere that has true freedom without government extortion and intervention and abuse and prisons and solitary confinements, if you know a place in the world that's really got true freedom, let me know. I think human nature has kind of prevented us from that. But, you know, I like to say, let's do what Jesus said. What's the main thing? Love your neighbor as yourself. If we had more of that, we'd have more freedom, we'd have more justice, and we'd have better places to live. So yeah, good to see you guys on here. This one went kind of long, but I wanted to talk about living and housing aspects in Mexico because I know a lot of you want that information. Shout out to all you in the live stream. I am seeing your comments here. I just try to stay on topic once I get going. And yeah, that's where we're at. Yes, I have been feeling a bit under the weather lately. I'm struggling with kind of my stomach issues and stuff, but I'm doing okay this afternoon. Appreciate you guys' prayers and support. And big shout out again to all our supporters on patreon.com/Gavin Syme, helping keep our videos going. And we'll do more of these streams. If you guys are enjoying these streams, my videos just casually talking about Mexico. They don't get tons of views. They don't go viral, but I know a lot of you core subscribers want to see what the world really looks like. So Gracias por tu ver y buenas tardes. México es muy bien, es muy bonita, es hermosa. La gente es muy bien, es muy bien. So, vamos a México. Ahora. Just get in the car and go now, right? Just take a trip down and check it out. Check out the rest of the world in general as much as you can. But for those of us stuck in the USA, Mexico is one of the easiest places to escape to find, get a place where we're not under the fascist thumb of the USSA, because the USA is going down, and it's important to understand that. Our economics are non-sustainable. We have no freedom. There's no constitution respected in our courts anymore. There's no rule of law. The government does what they want. All right. So, buenas tardes, amigos. We will see you soon. Good chatting with you guys, and glad I could get on here. All right. Peace.